everyone, this is your daily dose of brain rot. Back in 2003, a man named Andrew Carlssin was supposedly arrested on insider trading charges after making 126 high-risk stock trades and being successful on every single one of them. As the story goes, he started off with $800, and 2 weeks later, he had $350 million. Now, when questioned about this, instead of Andrew saying something a little more believable, like he cut off a lucky rabbit's foot or sold his soul to the devil, he told the police that he was a time traveler from the year 2256. And while he planned to make his wins look natural, he just got a little carried away. However, it seems that back in 2003, people weren't as gullible as they are today, and so the police just did not believe this guy. So Andrew then promised to give us the cure for AIDS, but unfortunately not cancer, because we still haven't figured that out in the year 2256. He also promised to tell them where Osama bin Laden was hiding in exchange for a bit of leniency on his charges. Andrew told the police that all he wanted was to be allowed to return to his time craft, but he refused to tell investigators where it was or how it worked, in case it fell into the wrong hands, because Andrew's hands must have been the right hands, I guess. Thank God he came back and gave us the cure for AIDS. What would we have done without Andrew Carlssin? Now, I'm sure you're going to know what I'm talking about here, but I've heard this story told quite seriously by other YouTube channels, as if this is something that actually happened. However, I would just like to point out that this story comes from the same source that broke the news: tuna fishing threatens mermaid population. News reporter eaten alive by 80-foot dinosaur. Japanese citizens becoming more animated. And rabbits sue to keep their feet on the ground. They've also got this bit about a recurring character called Batboy, who apparently had an affair with Hillary Clinton. These stories come from a satirical tabloid called the Weekly World News, and the earliest known source of the Andrew Carlssin story is the Weekly World News. They made it up and published it on February 25th, 2003. So then what the fuck happened? Why do some people think that this is real? Well, it seems to be because these people, who I pronounce Yahoo News, covered the story a month later on March 19th, and then the story spread. However, Weekly World News would add a little more bullshit to the pile by publishing a follow-up article on April 29th, saying now that Andrew Carlssin was released on bail. A bail of $1 million paid for by a mysterious benefactor. After that, Andrew disappeared off the face of the earth. I suppose the only explanation is
time travel! What?
At the end of the second Weekly World News article, it says a few intriguing facts actually give credence to the time travel explanation. While in custody, Carlssin predicted the exact date that the US-led invasion of Iraq would take place. Amazing! So he had predicted something that had already happened a month prior to the publication of this article. Let me throw an idea out there. Maybe Andrew wasn't a time traveler, and the only reason he told the police that was to throw them off his trail. Maybe Andrew was actually a psychic that can only predict things that have already happened.
You see those windows on the right side? They should have built fire escapes on those windows for the higher floors, then people could have gotten down. Well, looks like my job here is done. Goodbye, everyone!
Thank you, Captain Hindsight!
Anyways, it should be obvious to everyone that this story is just satire. But since Yahoo News covered it, some people thought it was real, not bothering to look any further than their trusted source of bullshit, or even bothering to look and see that Yahoo actually posted this in their entertainment section. I suppose that now is a good time to try and say something intelligent. Like, don't believe everything you hear. Like, for example, Nicolas Cage trying to convince us that he is not, in fact, a vampire that's been around for hundreds of years.
Are you aware of the outlandish rumor that Nicolas Cage in real life is a vampire?
I have been told about that, yeah. And I have gotten out of bed in the morning and looked in the mirror just to make sure I was still there, and I was. So that would probably end those rumors. Because I'm told that vampires don't have reflections.
But you see, Nicolas Cage, if that is even your real name, which it isn't, so that's suspicious. But that is exactly what a vampire would say.
People say there's evidence though, there's a photo.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this? Have you seen this?
I have. It's pretty good.
Yeah?
Pretty good, that one, yeah.
But doesn't...
Why don't we just keep it a mystery? It might be a lot more fun for everybody if I just say it's possible.
Nicolas Cage could be a vampire.
It's possible. I don't make a habit out of drinking people's blood, though. That's the only difference. I don't know what kind of vampire it would be. I certainly don't like the idea of hurting people.
And you say that, yet here you are, hurting people, drinking blood, and vamping on camera. Mystery bunked. Nicolas Cage is obviously probably a vampire. Speaking of vampires, hipsters. That was the best segue I could come up with. But here's a photo of a hipster at one of the biggest and most important events in the history of the universe. The reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Goldbridge, British Columbia. What, you've never heard of it? Don't worry. Nobody living in our time would have, if it wasn't for this meddling time-traveling hipster from the future. Now, sometime in 2010, this photo went viral. People started saying that this guy is clearly wearing modern clothes, he's wearing sunglasses, what the fuck, and he's holding a modern camera. Therefore, time-traveling hipster. And that's pretty much the entire argument. Now, I don't know if people are being serious about this or if this is like the birds aren't real thing, but if they are being serious, then I guess by that same logic, Gua are from the future as well. I mean, just look how scared this lady is.
Time travel!
But what they are also saying is that somebody had invented time travel before or around 2010, and then used it to go and watch the reopening of a bridge in Canada, instead of going to take some photos of 80-foot tall dinosaurs eating news reporters, or going back to the Dark Ages to find Nicolas Cage and warn him that people in the future think that he is an immortal vampire. So he better carefully plan his makeup routine for the rest of our lives to make it appear at least as if he's aging like a normal human. And a little bit of a receding hairline wouldn't hurt either. But, whatever. If this time-traveling hipster came from a time after 2010, why did he decide to pick a camera that people would think looks like a 2010-era camera? Why not get like the Google glasses, so that people 80 years later don't notice anything weird in this photo, since this guy was quite clearly trying to be discreet about his time traveling, since he didn't use it to make $350 million or take out hit to dinner and tell him that he's a great painter and he should keep it up, because there is literally nothing this man is wearing that he could not have bought in the 1940s. Kodak cameras, for example, were already pretty sleek and portable in the 1930s. And this man here also seems to be holding something camera-like. So what about him? Is he also from the future? Probably not, because he's wearing 1940s clothes, which, as we all know, everybody just wore a suit and a funny hat. Except for this fucking hipster. But how weird must he have looked to the people in the crowd? Because I think that the biggest red flag here is that no one in the crowd is actually looking at this guy how everyone looks at hipsters today.
What the fuck are we talking about? You are a hipster. What?
You're a hipster.
I hate hipsters.
Classic hipster denial.
What I really fucking do!
Self-hatred. Common hipster affliction.
Wait, there is this girl here that looks like she could be looking at him, and she does appear to be laughing, so maybe it's possible that this guy was actually a hipster. But just a hipster from the 1940s. Here's a couple items of clothing a hipster could have bought in the 1940s. Firstly, the sunglass. What a revolution! The scientifically ground and polished lens that shield your eyes from the sun. Buy a pair now for only $1, including the case. Maybe this hipster had the right idea traveling back to the 1940s to buy some clothes, because that is very well priced. You can't even get a bottle of fucking water for $1 today. But what's a hipster without a nice woolly jersey? Well, you could look through this 1940s patterns knitting book to find a design that suits your personality. Perhaps you're a photographer. Doesn't that jersey suit that camera quite nicely? But maybe you're a slightly more progressive hipster and you don't like these woolly jerseys. Maybe a cardigan is more your style. Well, there's an assortment of options for you in this Best Way catalog. But maybe you don't want a cardigan or a jersey, and you just want whatever the fuck this is with a big letter on the front of it. Amazing, so we're all dressed up now, and we're ready to go make some hipster friends. Now, based on my research, hipsters are known to congregate in front of weird shops, as can be seen in this photograph. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that our time traveler would fit in quite well with this group of hipsters. Most probably because he's just a normal 1940s guy, wearing normal 1940s clothes. Oh, don't be so sad, guy. I was only joking. You're not a hipster. Oh, no, wait, you're wearing Chuck Taylors. Never mind then. Speaking about time-traveling hipsters, this one wasn't as lucky as the last couple of guys. He wasn't able to go back and watch the reopening of a bridge in 1941, he didn't become an actor, and he didn't make $350 million. But in his defense, he is the only guy so far who successfully disappeared after fucking around with a time machine. Now, this guy went missing sometime in 1997 and was so missing that true crime podcasts were making episodes about him. So that tells you how serious this was. So what the fuck happened to this guy? Well, back in 1995, Mike Madman Marcum called into Art Bell's radio show Coast to Coast AM and told him that he discovered a means of time travel using a Jacob's ladder, which could have either meant this device that creates a high voltage traveling arc or the mythical ladder to heaven, depending on how carefully you use this thing, I guess. But the point is that Mike discovered that this thing of his needed a shitload of electricity. So instead of building something a little simpler than a time machine, like Tony Stark's arc reactor for example, which he could then use to power his time machine, Mike just decided to steal 6 transformers from the local power plant instead. Now, in some sources of the story, it is mentioned that these were like old transformers, so it doesn't really sound like they were in use. So that's nice, but he still took shit that wasn't his. Anyways, a little later, while testing out his time machine with his 6 transformers, time traveler Mike didn't successfully time travel, but he did successfully create a colossal blackout. The police then traced all of this shit to him and arrested him. Now, as far as I can tell, this is all actually true and confirmed by the police department in Stanberry, Missouri. Time traveler Mike spent 60 days in prison, and when he was released, he called into Art Bell a second time, saying that he was now building a second time machine, but this time from legally acquired parts, and that he was about 1 month away from completing it. If you listen to this Art Bell interview, which you can find on YouTube, Mike actually tells Art that he had sent around 200 items and small animals through it.
Yep. You got me mad now.
He does also say that he found the items and animals elsewhere, so that's nice, but now he wanted to test traveling through it himself. So it sounds like Mike was doing alright by himself. But during this interview, Art and Mike decided to share Mike's phone number so people can call him and offer ideas, spare components, and money. Now, fair enough, it is all of their shit, they can do whatever the fuck they want with it. However, after that, time traveler Mike just fucking disappeared.
Time travel!
Well, not really, actually. There is no record of him ever being reported as a missing person. But that didn't stop people from connecting the quote-unquote time traveler Mike Marcum of 1997 to a cold case from the 1930s, where an unknown person washed up on a California beach, stuck inside a metal tube with a device that apparently looked suspiciously like a cell phone. Now, I don't know how something can look suspiciously like a cell phone. Mid-90s cell phones are quite distinctive, but I also can't find the photo of whatever the fuck these people are talking about. But to quote Rock the Dwayne Johnson, because time traveler Mike Marcum was still alive and living in Hawaii. For some reason, when the story is retold today, some people forget to mention that Mike called into Art Bell a third time in 2015. So when you really think about it, Mike is the only guy we've spoken about so far who disappeared for about 19 years and then suddenly re-emerged somewhere else. So, in a way,
Time travel!
My God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
but just in the way that everybody experiences it. However, Mike does actually tell Art what happened to him in the third call, and what actually happened to him is that he lost his house to a fire, he lost his time machine to that fire, and he was now living homeless on the beach in Hawaii. And as terrible as that is, at least he was in Hawaii.
I see this as an absolute win.
Silver lining, because the Mystorian's an optimist. I fucking loved Hawaii. Hawaii is amazing. Unfortunately though, Mike didn't share that same opinion of Hawaii. He mentioned that he was struggling to adapt to the island. Fair enough, maybe Hawaii is not for everybody. However, perhaps his past and his opinion of Hawaii came back to haunt him. Because in 2016, Mike tried starting a GoFundMe to further his research into time travel. But apparently, all he was able to raise was $10. So that's pretty sad. But it also might not be true, because there was shitloads of bullshit made up about this guy after he quote-unquote disappeared in 1997. All that really matters is that in 2022, Mike said that he's doing well. He's back home now in Ohio, and he didn't get stuck in a tube in 1930. Hopefully one day Mike builds another time machine, and he uses it to go back to 1930 and save that guy that got stuck in a tube, instead of going to see a fucking bridge. Now speaking of bridges, are you a time traveler if you travel between different timelines, like parallel universes? Or are you just a fucking con artist? As it would seem, the answer to that question is as relentless, unforgiving, and straightforward as the progression of time itself. In 1954, a man arrived at a Tokyo airport with a passport from a country called Taured. Now, I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, because Taured does not exist. Right now, at this point in the story, most people have already figured out that this passport is fake and this man is lying. Some people, however, haven't. Now, according to Hannah Smith writing on fullfact.org, a Facebook page called Alien UFO Sightings seems to be the source of the next bit of bullshit I'm about to tell you. Why is it always these fucking people? Authorities held this man in a highly secure room while trying to figure out where the fuck Taured is. They put 2 guards outside the room, and the next morning when they came to check up on him, this man had disappeared. As fun as this is, it is sadly, verifiably false. How strange for a page dedicated to alien UFO sightings to make shit up. Now, according to Hannah on Full Fact, the Man From Taured story appears to be based off the real case of John Allen K. Zegras, who was actually arrested after entering Japan using a fake passport. Now again, you probably know what I'm talking about here, but I've heard other YouTube channels retelling this story quite seriously, and I just find it really weird that the conclusion that makes more sense to some people is that this man was really from a parallel timeline where there really is a country called Taured somewhere south of the Sahara. And then he just disappeared back to his own timeline while being held in a highly secure room. And that makes more sense to some people than this guy just having a fake passport. What in the beautiful mind is going on with some people in this world? Now, according to Full Fact, the case in question was mentioned in the House of Commons as part of a debate on border control measures in 1960. During the debate, Robert Matthew MP claimed that Mr. Zegras was facing prosecution in Japan after attempting to enter the country using a passport in a language unknown, which was stated to have been issued in Tamanrasset, the capital of the independent sovereign state of Taured. So there you go, mystery solved. We know who the fuck this guy was. Now, despite neither Tamanrasset nor Taured being real places, Mr. Zegras had successfully used his passport to travel the world without hindrance, before eventually fucking up and going to Japan. Because they don't fuck around. They have 80-foot tall dinosaurs eating reporters there. 2 weeks after Mr. Matthew mentioned Mr. Zegras, an article in the Canadian newspaper The Province also reported on the story with further details, writing that John claimed to be a naturalized Ethiopian and an intelligence agent for Colonel Nasser. The passport was stamped as issued at Tamanrasset, the capital of Taured, south of the Sahara. Any places so romantically named ought to exist, but they don't. John Allen Kutcher Zegras invented them in his beautiful mind. So evidently, as it would appear, this Facebook post was inspired by the story of John Allen K. Zegras, but then just made up the part about him disappearing, because John Zegras didn't disappear. He actually spent 1 year in a Japanese prison. But I suppose when you think about it, in a way...
Time travel!
Anyways, speaking about time travelers named John, our final dose of brain rot for today is the story of John Titor. Titor? How about we just go with John? Now either this John really was an interdimensional time traveler and interdimensional hero who prevented World War III, or he was just some random guy on the internet who watched Back to the Future one too many times. Simple answer says Back to the Future. Anyways, on November 2nd, 2000, an internet user with the with the handle timetravel_0.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no.
Might as well have gone with cringelord_69. But anyway, timetravel_0 began posting on a quote-unquote obscure internet discussion board. And Time Travel Zero said, quote, "Greetings, I am a time traveler from the year 2036. I'm on my way home after getting an IBM 5100 computer from the year 1975. Well, I guess he was a time traveler, so it makes sense that he had some free time to stop and chat with people on the internet. Anyways, he goes on to say, my time machine is a stationary mass. Temporal displacement, blah blah blah. I'll be happy to post pictures of the unit. Sure, let's see it. As you can see, he did indeed post pictures of his machine, mounted, like Back to the Future, in a car. Although it was a 67 Chevrolet rather than a DeLorean. Well, fuck me, he posted pictures of it. I am convinced. I certainly believe John Titor. Time Traveler John then said, quote, my goal is not to be believed. God fucking damn it. Fine. I find it weird that it's in a car like John Titor built a DeLorean. But hey, that's irrelevant if it works. If this man can tell us some specifics about the future, then I'll be a very happy Mystorian. I'll even jump in your bandwagon and sing your praises. The Mystorian in the DeLorean. So let's see what happens. So between November 2000 and March 2001, John answered many more questions. So this dude clearly had a lot of free time on his hands. The future must be pretty good. Now, apparently, John claimed to be an American soldier from 2036 based out of Tampa, Florida. And he claimed to be assigned to the government's time travel project. Now, John needed these ancient relics here, these IBM 5100s, to debug some shit in the future, claiming that they have an undocumented ability to do some shit with mainframes and a whole lot of technical words that are putting me to sleep as I read this, so I shall skip ahead. John also said that for several months, he had been trying to warn anyone who would listen about the potential threat of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, spread through beef products. He was also trying to warn everyone about the possibility of an upcoming civil war within the United States. Two things so far that didn't really come true. Now, when questioned about the topic of UFOs, John said that these things still remain unexplained in his time. Oh no. So I guess that means we're not getting disclosure from the US government for at least another decade. How shocking. I guess it must just be so difficult to prove that aliens are visiting Earth, despite the fact that these government whistleblowers say that the US government has retrieved 40 crashed alien spacecraft, some of them alien bodies included. But disclosure is a marathon.
Disclosure isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. It's not going to happen overnight. Disclosure isn't an event, it's a process.
No, it's pretty simple. But I suppose you're loving the attention and just want to keep people watching and listening to you. Nah, I'm sure it's just too difficult to wheel out the dead alien's body. That is a hard day's work. What a bunch of fucking bullshit. Anyways, let's get back to John Titor. Now, John suggested that UFOs and aliens might just be time travelers with superior time machines, with a time much further into the future than his own. Fair enough, can't argue with madness, but according to John, a civil war in the US would begin in about 2004, which it didn't really, but he said that it would get steadily worse and worse until 2015, where it would end with a brief but intense World War III, in which nuclear weapons were deployed against major cities, an event that John Titor referred to as N-Day. What does the N stand for? Never happened? Because if it did, then I guess I missed it. John said that Washington, D.C. and Jacksonville, Florida would be hit in the exchange, and said that after the war, Omaha, Nebraska would be the new US capital. I myself would have voted for Hawaii, but I am South African, so who gives a fuck what I think. Now, John never detailed the exact cause of this World War III scenario, but in one post he mentioned that the hostilities were led by border clashes and overpopulation. Well, here's an interesting fact for you. The entire population of the world would be able to fit inside Manhattan. Now, does that mean that we're not overpopulated? I don't know, I'm not qualified to speak on that, I just said it was an interesting fact. Now, there are some other predictions here, but they either never came true or just are impossible to prove. Like his prediction here that the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics is correct. According to John, this meant that his time travel had caused the formation of a new time stream, and that in his new time stream, which seems to be our current time stream, because he came here, the events that Titor described would occur somewhat differently than they did in his home timeline. So, to some people, this made his predictions non-falsifiable. To me, it sounds like a fucking cop-out. If time travel is possible, why haven't we met any time travelers? It's a pretty good question. Now, Lawrence Dodd says in this article that we've been reading from, what if we have met time travelers without even knowing it? Or what if we've met them, but didn't believe them? See, you can make whatever excuse you want here, but the fact of the matter is this. It should be easy enough to prove that you can time travel by simply doing it. Here's an idea. Travel to 1941 and bring that hipster back to us so we can ask him what the fuck was so interesting about a bridge. Anyway, back to the point here. The excuse that John Titor would have about this different time streams shit is basically what the Avengers time travel was like.
Think about it. If you travel to the past, that past becomes your future. And your former present becomes the past, which can't now be changed by your new future.
Exactly.
So Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit.
Language.
Anyways, this is above my pay grade, so I'll just keep reading the shit that I've written on my computer. So after all of this bullshit, John Titor gets quite popular because 2000 was a different time, I suppose. And at one point, he was even interviewed on a national talk radio show, Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. Now, according to Lawrence Dodd's writing on The Telegraph, he described his time machine in detail, even posting pictures of its user's manual. A small internet cult then grew up around him. Then, on March 21st, 2001, John said that he was returning to 2036 and stopped posting messages. John Titor has never been heard from since, leaving his acolytes to pick over the remains. Jesus, Lawrence, what the fuck do you mean by that? Today, there are little shrines to his name all across the internet. But who was he really?
You should know by now that we are the it doesn't matter.
Now, according to Bethania Palmer writing on Snopes.com, no one has ever taken credit for creating John Titor, nor has anyone been definitively proven to be John Titor either. People have tried tracing the messages, and an Italian investigative TV show called Voyager, pointing to the eponymously named John Titor Foundation, which just so happened to publish a book presenting the Titor story as real. And some people have narrowed it down even further, saying that the person behind all of this John Titor bullshit was an entertainment lawyer named Lawrence Haber. Now, Lawrence Dodd goes into a little more detail in his write-up, saying that this Larry Haber guy is the CEO of the John Titor Foundation. and an IP address connected with Titor points to the same town in which Larry Haber registered the John Titor Foundation. A private detective hired by an Italian TV company concluded that a guy named John Rick, with his presumed computer knowledge, was the culprit. And apparently, Titor's name had actually been used in bullshit like this before in 1998. Only this time, talking shit about Y2K. Now, Larry Haber apparently claims to be the lawyer for John Titor's mother. So, does that mean that the mystery is solved? Well, not according to some people. John Titor's claims conveniently contained a cop-out. Simply by just traveling through time, John Titor created a new world line. And that's the biggest bunch of fucking bullshit I have ever heard in my life. So at least for now, this merry little band of hipsters, the John Titor Foundation, are firmly at the top of my list of suspects. Maybe it was Larry Haber. Maybe it was John Rick. Maybe it was both of them, and maybe it was neither of them. Who knows? But there is another theory that I like a lot more. And that theory is that John Titor was actually the time-traveling hipster taking a photo at the bridge. And there's actually some anecdotal evidence that backs this theory up. So when John Titor said that his goal was not to be believed, he did actually say a little more than that as well. He said, quote, "Perhaps I should let you all in on a little secret. No one likes you in the future. This time period is looked at as being full of lazy, self-centered, civically ignorant sheep. Perhaps you should be less concerned about me and more concerned about that." And I'll be damned if that's not the most hipster shit I have ever heard in my life.